I still remember the night he left. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no broken dishes, no slammed doors. Just a quiet goodbye disguised as a promise. He said he was going to the store to buy milk for the kids. He never came back. At first, I waited. 1 hour. 2. Then the silence became louder than any argument we'd ever had. The clock ticked like a heartbeat, reminding me that time moves on. Even when your world stops. I stood by the window, holding my daughter in one arm and my baby boy in the other. The night outside was cold, but what froze me wasn't the wind, it was fear. Fear of what would happen next. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. That night, I learned something I never forgot. Sometimes, the people who promise to love you forever are the same ones who teach you how to survive alone. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. I cried until there were no tears left, only determination. Rent was due. The cupboards were empty. I had 2 children, no money, and no one to call. But even in the darkest moments, I looked at those tiny faces and whispered to myself, giving up is not an option. I found work as a cleaner, a housemaid. Some called it low work. I called it survival. I woke up before sunrise and walked 4 miles with a bucket and a mop in my hands. Every step hurt. But every step reminded me why I was doing it for them. There were days I cleaned 3 houses in one day. There were nights when I skipped dinner so my kids could eat. And when they asked, "Mommy, aren't you hungry?" I lied. I said I'd eaten at work. But I hadn't. Sometimes, when I finished scrubbing the floor of someone else's mansion, I'd stand up slowly, my knees shaking, and whisper, "One day, I'll have a home like this." Not for the luxury, but for the peace. But peace doesn't come easily to single mothers. Society has a way of punishing you for surviving. People judged me, some pitied me, others said, "You should've chosen a better man." They'd Tino I'd chosen love. I just didn't Tino it would leave me with nothing but 2 babies and a broken heart. Still, I learned to move in silence. Because when the world doubts you, you don't argue, you build. Every dollar I earned, I saved. Every tear I cried, I turned into fuel. When the kids slept, prima resta yet awake studying, learning, dreaming. I watched videos about cleaning techniques, business skills, customer service. I didn't know it yet, but I was preparing for something bigger. One morning, I cleaned the home of a woman who looked like she had everything. Her house smelled of roses. Her hands were soft, her clothes elegant. She offered me coffee, and as I wiped her kitchen counter, I whispered in my heart, "One day, I'll build something of my own." That thought stayed with me. It became my secret weapon. While others slept, I planned. While others complained, I worked. I wasn't just cleaning houses anymore. I was building my foundation. There were nights I'd look at my children sleeping side by side, their faces peaceful, their hands holding each other, and I'd cry quietly, not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. Because they were the reason I kept going. They never asked for much, just love, safety, and a smile. And even when I was falling apart, I made sure they saw that smile. The world had taken so much from me, but it couldn't take my hope. And so I kept moving slowly, painfully, but always forward. Until one day, I got a call from a client. She said, "I recommended you to my sister. She said you're the best cleaner she's ever had." It was just one sentence, but to me, it was a door opening. That night, as I rocked my baby boy to sleep, I whispered to him, "One day, you'll see, my love. Your mother will make it." If you're still listening to my story, it means something inside you relates to this struggle. Maybe you've been left behind too. Maybe you've been told you'll never make it. But listen to me, you will. If you believe that strength is built from pain, subscribe to the channel now and join me in this journey of real stories that remind us we are never truly broken, we are just becoming stronger. That was the beginning, the pain, the silence, the survival. But what came next changed everything. Because from that moment on, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. After that phone call, something deep inside me shifted. It wasn't just another client, it was recognition. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Someone had noticed my effort, my care, my work. That small moment, that single voice on the phone was the spark that lit a fire inside me. Soon, more people started calling. One client told another, and another. Within months, my phone rang more than ever before. I was cleaning 5, sometimes 6 houses a week. My body ached constantly, my hands rough and red from chemicals, but I didn't complain. Because every call, every job, every dollar was a step away from the girl he left behind. I told myself every morning, this is not your end. This is your preparation. And I meant it. But success never comes dressed as comfort. It comes disguised as exhaustion. Some days I woke up sick, but still went to work. Some clients smiled kindly. Others treated me like air. I cleaned their homes while listening to them laugh about their vacations, their plans, their happy lives, and part of me broke inside. Yet another part whispered, one day, I'll live that peace too. That thought carried me through the pain. One night, I came home long after dark. My daughter was waiting by the window, her little hand pressed against the glass. She was sleepy, her hair tangled, her eyes half closed. "Mommy," she said, "why do you work so much?" The question hit harder than any hardship I'd faced. How do you explain to a child that sometimes love looks like absence? I knelt beside her and held her tiny hands. "Because, my love," I whispered, "I want you to choose your dreams, not your survival." She smiled softly, and I felt my heart both break and heal at once. From that day on, my why became stronger than my pain. Every morning before sunrise, I prayed, God, give me strength to change our story. And every night, when I lay down beside my kids, I whispered, we're getting closer. Weeks turned into months. I became faster, better, more organized. Clients started calling me reliable, trustworthy, professional. And for the first time in my life, I began to believe it too. I wasn't just cleaning houses anymore. I was learning how to lead myself, how to move with pride even in humility. Then one afternoon, while I was polishing a table in a large living room, a woman I worked for looked at me and said, "You're really good at this. Have you ever thought of starting your own business?" I laughed at first, the kind of laugh that hides fear. Me? A business owner? No, ma'am. I'm just trying to make ends meet. But she smiled and said, "Don't underestimate yourself. You have something special." Her words stayed in my mind long after I left her house. That night, as I put my children to bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The question echoed in my head, what if I could? I found an old notebook, tore a page from it, and wrote in big letters, New Dawn Cleaning. It wasn't just a name, it was a promise. A new dawn for my family, a new beginning for my spirit. I had no idea how, but I knew I had to start. And that night, for the first time in years, I fell asleep with hope instead of fear. Sometimes, life changes quietly, not with fireworks, but with small victories that no one else sees. For me, it was the morning I walked into a client's office and saw our logo New Dawn Cleaning printed on their monthly invoice. It wasn't a dream anymore. It was real. The smell of fresh polish filled the air. The floor shone. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I was a businesswoman. A leader, a mother who refused to stay broken. But success didn't erase the past. It echoed through every decision I made. There were still nights when I'd stare at my reflection and whisper, "You're not enough." Because deep down, I still heard his voice, the man who left me, the one who once promised forever and disappeared when I needed him most. But each morning, I fought back with one simple sentence: I am still here. Running a business as a single mother was never easy. There were days when my kids were sick, and I had to choose between staying by their side or showing up for work. Days when I wanted to cry, but there was no time, just deadlines, bills, and the endless weight of being everything for everyone. Still, every time I held my daughter's hand, every time my son smiled, I found my strength again. They didn't need perfection. They needed my persistence. And so, I kept building. The company began to grow faster than I could have imagined. We started getting contracts with offices, clinics, even schools. Clients said they could feel the difference in our work, that we brought warmth, care, and honesty into every space. That's when I realized something important. People don't buy your service, they buy your story. They buy you, and my story was written in tears, determination, and love. I remember one particular day, a local businesswoman invited me to speak at a small community event. Said, "Your journey might inspire others." At first, I laughed. Me? Inspire others? I was still struggling, still figuring things out, but I went. When I stood on that stage, my voice trembled. I looked at the crowd, mostly women, some with babies on their laps, some with tired eyes like mine used to be, and I told them the truth. I told them about the nights I went hungry so my children wouldn't, about the mornings I walked miles to work because the bus fare was too much, about how I was abandoned and how I refused to stay defeated. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one woman stood up and said, "Thank you." I thought I was the only one. That moment changed me forever, because I realized I wasn't just cleaning offices anymore. I was cleaning away shame, one story at a time. From that day on, I promised myself something. If I ever made it big, I'd use my success to lift others like me. I started hiring more women, single mothers, widows, women who had been told they were too broken to start Aubert. And every paycheck I gave them felt like rewriting my own past. We laughed. We cried. We shared food when one couldn't afford groceries. We babysat each other's kids. We became more than coworkers. We became a movement. One night, after putting my kids to sleep, I walked out to the balcony of our small apartment. The city lights shimmered like stars fallen to the ground. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel proud. Not because of the money, not because of the clients, but because I had survived and turned survival into something beautiful. I whispered to the night, "If you're watching me, God, thank you for not letting me give up." If you've made it this far in my story, if something inside you is burning, telling you that you can't quit, then this message is for you. Don't give up because life got unfair. Don't let what someone did to you decide who you become. If I can rise from being left with nothing but 2 children and a broken heart, then so can you. Subscribe now. Join this journey of hope, strength, and new beginnings. Because somewhere out there, another mother needs to hear your comeback story too. I used to believe that success was about proving people wrong, proving him wrong, proving the world wrong. But I was wrong too. Because success is not revenge. It's redemption. It's waking up one morning and realizing you no longer need to be seen because you finally see yourself. The years passed, and New Dawn Cleaning was no longer just a company. It had become a movement. We had contracts in several cities now. Vans with our logo driving through neighborhoods I once walked through hungry. Every time I saw one, my chest tightened, not from pride, but from gratitude. Because behind every van was a woman who once thought her life was over. And now, she had a paycheck, dignity, and hope again. I started something new, the New Dawn Foundation. It offered training and microloans to single mothers who wanted to start small businesses of their own. At first, it was just 5 women, then 50, then hundreds. And I watched, amazed, as they transform. Women who had been told they were worthless now standing on stages, speaking about their dreams. Every time one of them succeeded, I felt like I was healing a part of my old self. One afternoon, during a graduation ceremony for the foundation's first class, a woman named Clara came up to me with tears in her eyes. She said, "You don't know me, but you saved me. I was ready to give up. And then I saw your video online." I hugged her tightly and whispered, "No, Clara, you saved yourself. I just reminded you that you could." And in that moment, I understood the real meaning of purpose. It's not about building something for yourself. It's about building something that outlives you. My children grew up watching all of this unfold. They saw the pain, the tears, the laughter, the endless nights of hard work. And one day, my daughter, now a teenager, looked at me and said, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to be like you." My throat tightened, because I had spent so many years afraid that my kids would remember the struggle, but they remembered the strength instead. That was my legacy. Sometimes I still drive through the old streets where everything began, past the small apartment where I cried myself to sleep, past the bus stop where I used to wait, holding 2 babies and a bag of dreams. And every time I do, I smile. Because that broken girl didn't disappear. She evolved. She became the woman telling this story today. Not long ago, I was invited to speak at a national conference about women in business. It was surreal me, standing on a stage with CEOs and investors, talking about resilience and hope. But before I spoke, I took a deep breath and looked at the crowd, thousands of people waiting. And primera sa idi. I'm not here because I'm special. I'm here because I refuse to give up. And because every time life knocked me down, I got up holding the hands of my children. The crowd went silent, and then they stood. A standing ovation. Not for me, but for every woman who has ever fought in silence, every mother who has ever turned tears into power. When I got home that night, I sat on my bed, looked at the ceiling, and whispered, "God, if this is the purpose you had for me all along, thank you for the pain that led me here. Because now I understand the pain was never punishment. It was preparation." And if you're listening right now, maybe this is your sign. Maybe life has broken you. Maybe people have doubted you. Maybe you're tired of being strong all the time. But please, don't stop here. Your story isn't over just because it hurts right now. Sometimes the chapters that break us are the ones that shape us the most. Because if she could do it, so can you. Time has a strange way of healing and humbling you. Years passed, and the woman I once was, scared, tired, and lost, became a memory I carried gently, like an old scar that no longer hurt, but still reminded me of where I came from. My children grew up faster than I was ready for. My son is now in college, studying business. He says he wants to take over New Dawn Cleaning one day. My daughter, she's in law school, determined to fight for women's rights. Sometimes I sit at the dinner table and just watch them laugh, and in their laughter I hear all the nights I cried finally turn into something beautiful. Last month, we celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the New Dawn Foundation. Hundreds of women gathered under the same roof, women who had once been broken, now standing tall, confident, radiant. Some brought their children, some brought photos of homes they had bought, businesses they had opened, dreams they had revived. As I stood on stage and looked at them, tears filled my eyes, because this was the real empire I had built. Not money, not fame, but lives changed. After the event, as people were leaving, I saw a man standing by the door. Older now, a little gray in his hair, eyes I once knew by heart. It was him, the father of my children. He walked toward me slowly, holding a folded newspaper, the one with my story on the front page. He smiled, shyly, and said, "I came to say, I'm proud of you. You did what I couldn't." For a moment, the world went quiet. All the pain, all the anger, all the years, they stood between us like ghosts. But I didn't feel hatred anymore. I just nodded and said, "I know, and I forgive you." He lowered his head. Tears filled his eyes. And 10A left just like before. But this time I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free, because closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you choose for yourself. That night, when I got home, I took out the old notebook, the same one where I once wrote the name New Dawn Cleaning for the first time. Its pages were worn, yellowed by time. On the last page, I wrote, "What began with pain became purpose. What began with survival became strength. And what began as a story about loss became a legacy of love." Then I closed it, not as an ending but as a thank you. I stepped outside and looked up at the night sky. It was the same sky I used to cry under years ago, begging for a miracle. Now, I was that miracle. I whispered softly, to every woman still fighting in the dark, "Hold on, your dawn is coming." And I meant it, because I know how it feels to lose everything, to wonder if you'll ever smile again, to carry 2 children in your arms and not know how you'll feed them tomorrow. But I also know this: you are stronger than you think. You are more capable than you believe. And the story of your life is far from over. When people ask me today, "How did you do it? How did you build an empire after being left with nothing?" I tell them the truth. I didn't build an empire. I rebuilt myself. And once you rebuild yourself, once you learn to rise from your own ashes, everything else is possible. So, if you're listening now, I want you to remember something. Every scar you carry is proof that you survived. Every tear you cried watered the seeds of who you're becoming. And every failure was just a lesson in disguise. Your time is coming. Your dawn is waiting. Don't let this story end here. If it touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own strength, subscribe now. Join this family of fighters, dreamers, and believers. Because together, we rise eager. Together, we turn pain into power and fear into faith. Subscribe, comment your story, and let the world know, no matter how dark the night gets, you can always build your own dawn.